There, how's that?
Okay, welcome to the February 21st, 2023 session of Tangerine SDR and HamSci technical session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week, let's see, I had some personal things to take care of, but also have been spending some time on GPSs and learning about those and fixing other stuff, cleaning up. So those things have taken my time. Next on the list is Nathaniel, W2NAF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Steve. It's continued to be a very busy week for me, as always. I'm happy to report that I've made really good progress on the HamSci workshop agenda. I don't think I shared that with this group meeting last week, but I put the link in the chat there. We have we've got the agenda there. I can still add in more posters. There's still going to be a little tweaking. I've heard that the NSF program officer from the GREEP grant is going to be there, and the NASA program scientist from some of the NASA stuff we're on, he's going to be there, and ARDC, they're going to have representatives there. So have all the funding agencies there. I'm getting interviewed by a WVIA reporter, NPR reporter tomorrow morning, so that should be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on. So hopefully I can talk to Scotty, see how the tangerines are doing, and I'd like to see if we can have some magnetometer boards available for sale over at the HamSci workshop as well. So W2NF, back to net.
Okay, next on the list is Dan, N4XWE.
Thank you, Dave, and good evening, all. Sorry I missed the last couple of weeks. As I had mentioned to Dave, I was doing a webinar for gliding instructors, and it just happened to be coincidental with this one, so caused a conflict. Anyway, my one piece of progress last week was to write a script to do the code for the Nano VNA. So if anybody has a Nano VNA and you want to use it in Linux on a Raspberry Pi, I have the script that will install it for you. So I guess that's about it from here. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. Next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, good evening. Well, let's see what's been happening here. The last Tuesday, doctor chased me around the operating room, and he had a knife in his hand, and he caught me. So I've been having to take it easy the last week, and I have another week of having to take it a little bit easy, but getting a little bit better now than it was. Let's see, I have gone and done it with the radio club here. Some people were asking about a extra class course leading to taking the exam, and I stuck my foot in my mouth and said, well, I've done one before, I can do it again. And so unfortunately I got taken up on it, so now I got to go work on that some more. That's about it. Back to net, K4BSE.
It's sort of like you didn't take a step forward, the line stepped back.
Right. Just about, yeah.
So next on the list is Michael, AA8K. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, thanks very much. Greeting to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. And then we have Bill, AB4EJ. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening. My only accomplishment on the ham radio side this week was to have heard Bouvet Island on the air a couple of times. Wasn't able to work them. There was so many lids that were working right on top of the DX station that anyway, I thought it was cool even just to have heard them. So I don't think it's going to go down as a DX expedition for the record books because very few people are actually able to work them. Anyway, on this project, about the only thing we accomplished was my students provided materials to Hillman's a grad student, and I understand that the grad student is now able to work with a copy of the server. So we're going to establish a fork of the project for NJIT to work on, which we will merge back together once with ours once they have that all working, and bring NJIT's new magnetometer analysis package online once they have that working. So that's all I have for this project this week. Back to Nick.
Bill, I have a question. Was there a issue with the personal space weather station website this week? I noticed it wasn't reading from the different people contributing.
Well, I'll have to take a look at that. This is the first I've heard about that, but it's always possible.
It's back now, but it was kind of, there was some yellows and reds on there. You still have 3 reds, but
Well, yeah, the students have been doing some work. I had been running the program that it's called a watchdog. It watches for incoming packages to come in, data packages. And I had them to convert it over to run as a service on Unix.
okay.
Because if it's just running in the terminal, then when the university does maintenance on my machine, it crashes the terminal, and then that
Right.
program gets killed. But we've now established this as a service that runs, and it's an official service. You can start it, inquire on status. It restarts automatically when the server is booted and all that. So you might have gone in there and looked at it at a time when the students were converting that over. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, I was just curious because I noticed it and it's back to normal, except you need to kick your machine.
Well, I have 2 of them. And unfortunately, the one that's I'm not running is in front. So
Yes.
zoom in tight enough, you'll see that the other one, the one that's collecting magnetometer, is running. I will try and get that running again this week.
Okay. Well, next on the list is Bob in 5 BRG. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, just hello, everybody. I don't have a lot to report. Just wanted to check in and see what was happening here. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. And next on the list, let's see. It's Dave McGaw in 1 HAC. Go ahead, Dave.
Good evening, everyone. Hope to get a little further on the ham size stuff, but well, I did get the stuff set up with Nathaniel and for the workshop, which is good. But I hope to get further on using Tom's instructions, but I've got the operating system set up, and we'll continue working on loading stuff up for that. And otherwise been busy with the other projects, Yeoman's project and our Dartmouth AM Doppler stuff. One thing I will mention, well, first, I was disappointed that the CME hit and all of a sudden nothing happened. But though there were, earlier this week, there were some, this past week, there was aurora visible from here. I didn't get to see it, but it was reported from Mount Washington, and some others in this region saw it. So we have hopes in that direction. Something very interesting right now, I've been tuning through the time stations, and 25 megahertz has disappeared. 20 megahertz is weak. 15 megahertz, I'm hearing WWV, WWVH, and I'm hearing BPM, China on 15 megahertz. I haven't heard it on there before. I've heard it on 10. So 15 megahertz has got some good propagation going on right now. Probably some active Doppler to be observed as well. So Oh, and we're looking forward to a big snowstorm, but I guess the whole country is too. So back to net. It was 40, almost 50 today. It's supposed to be 80 down in Washington tomorrow. I'm glad we don't get that, but it was a hot walk this afternoon. Thanks.
Okay, next on the list is Dylan. Go ahead, Dylan.
Nothing much going on, just doing some CAD work, and just got the email from Scotty today for the first step file for the Tangerine SDR. That is not the file that we will be making the case off of, but I should be receiving that at some point. We'll see when I get that, but once I do, I should be able to make it pretty quick. The only issue is actually getting it made. So we'll see how that works out. But other than that, nothing else. So I'll send it back to
Okay, next on the list is Hyomin Kim, KD2 MCR. Go ahead, Hyomin.
Hello everyone. So two things. I'm working working on the paper for the Minotaur projects, Hardware X, based on a lot of paragraphs and materials and figures that mostly given mostly by Dave Witten and Jules. So I'm trying to put things together and so that it can be published as soon as possible. The other one, as Bill Engelke mentioned, one of my students is working on this server so that the data can be displayed on the website. So I think things are going as planned. So hopefully we can show something for the Hampshire workshop. So that's all. Back to that. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Next on the list is James, KG4 DSG. Go ahead, James.
Evening, Dave and the group. Not much going on here, just listening in as usual. With that, back to the net.
Okay, and then we have Jay, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay. Jay, are you there? Looks like he must be away from the mic.
He had to step away. He tried to tell you that, but you didn't
Okay.
have your.
Okay, next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. Let's see, Dave, I tried to listen to Bouvet, but didn't work out very well. Missed on the timing. I turned the radio on and found out they were closing down that morning. But I got the feeling that they went down there without any idea how to accurately set the time on their computers for FT8, except with the internet, of course. And so that may have caused some problems. I've had issues with the Grape in that I like to work other aspects of amateur radio, and I don't want to blow up the Grape. So I ordered a 10 megahertz bandpass filter to go in front of it. Hopefully that'll keep the 100 watts or the legal limit out of the Grape. It's plugging along, but I've been disconnecting it when I've been on the air. And like other people, we are expecting another 10 to 20 inches of snow and wind gusts up to 65 miles an hour.
Wow.
The weather people say that this is going to affect offer life-threatening conditions from Arizona all the way up to the Midwest. So everybody stand by. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. Next on the list is Jonathan, KC3 EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. It was quite a busy week for me, both personally and also with my VLF. So what I was able to do was able to do more analysis and decoding of the SAQ transmission. And I'm happy to say that the message was fully able to be copied. I wrote up a email thread to the group. Joe, thanks again for the your result, even though you were not able to copy the message. One thing that I wanted to show is the power spectrum here, and it's just a little bit above the noise, but it's above the noise enough that I was able to do a copy and only use a gain factor of 100. Actually, when I made the audio file, I made a mistake with the starting timestamp, and I started it 10 minutes early, and what was happening was parts of the message the initial part of the message was being repeated over a span of 10 minutes. The SAQ's call sign and VVV, and then at around 1500 UT was when the message started. So it got cut off early, but I went through and I listened just to make sure, and I was able to get the full message and also a audible copy of the full message, which I was very happy about. So this kind of result with the power spectrum, this is really good news, and hopefully we will be able to copy even more transmissions from SAQ. With that, I also submitted my abstracts to Nathaniel, some really cool and exciting stuff. And I'm currently working on those. And I also I was checking on my remote, my FreeBSD server that was running VLFRX tools programs, which will copy the compressed Vorbis stream from Paul's server into my server, and I run it through the event detector and the token detector, and also I also record compressed spectrograms from using VT-SID. So that's also still working. I'm currently working on building up the 3-channel VLF system, and I found out that the audio injector Octo, that's the multi-channel sound card, apparently can operate at 96 kilohertz on the Raspberry Pi. So there may be a time in the future where I may be switching out the old system and using this new one. So I just borrowed a label maker, and I was able to label all the jacks and LEDs, and buttons and things on the case. So things are going forward. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Okay, well, next on the list is Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Really nothing to say. Just plugging away. Hopefully we won't get all that snow. That's all.
Okay, and next we have Scotty Cowling. Go ahead, Scotty.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't change my name there. It's
Yeah.
my,
It looks like that house might be a little breezy.
yeah. Well, I've been trying to get the picture for the where it is at today. This was about 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is a little bit breezy. And all that snow you guys are gonna get, yeah, we're gonna have a terrible rainstorm here. What did they say? Gusts of 25 miles an hour and rain. It's so small they don't even tell you how much rain we're gonna get. And we're gonna get a cold wave. It's gonna be 58 for the high on Wednesday.
Oh,
Sorry, guys.
it's terrible.
I know it's terrible. I'm gonna have to move south. It's just too
Yeah.
cold,
Quite
especially
a,
with all this breeze here.
quite a contrast to Flagstaff.
Yes, it is. So about 6,000 feet difference, and boy, what a difference it makes. Anyway, I got, like I said, I sent the Gerbers off to Dylan. I hope that will work for you, Dylan. I can get you the latest ones if that format is okay. And that's what I just wanted to check to make sure it's okay. Okay, so before I go off and beg the CAD guy to do some free work for me in building that back again with the latest Gerbers of the 4 boards. And I've been through all of the real Tangerine boards. I've got one board that doesn't load. I have one board that has a bad clock series resistor and one board that has an LED in backwards. And the other 9 boards seem to work okay. So I'm looking to get those out to the people this week. And so I got to get this stuff out because at the end of March, I'll be living in a trailer. So I won't have any way to do any rework or anything like that for probably a month. So
That's great news, Scotty. So nine boards there looking good.
yep, 9 boards and got and I've got the reset problem was my own stupidity. I connected up the wrong pins on the switch. But we built the CAD model wrong. So fix that with it. And the good news is you can fix it with a knife without taking anything off the board. So, and the reset switch still works. So that's good.
I do have a question though, Scotty, with the CAD model, the step file, it does have some components that are hanging off of the board besides the SMA connector, and I think that's it, but there are some components hanging off. And I'm wondering if that is built that way or if that was the CAD or just this specific step file.
There should
just as a
be,
test.
yeah, there should be 4 connectors that hang off. That's the power connector. It's off by maybe 1/10 of an inch. The RJ45 maybe 2/10 of an inch, and it's a double height. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a double height RJ45. I got to turn off.
Okay, so that's what's hanging off then. Let me share my screen real quick just to make sure. So right here, grab the mouse real quick. So come on, connect. There we go. Okay. So basically, what I am talking about are these 4 pieces over here, and then these 2 pieces.
Okay, now the reason those are hanging off is because the 4 on the left are actually on RF modules that plug onto the board from below. So they are on the back side. And if you can look over on the right-hand side, you can see, you can Yep, so those SMAs are actually on two RF modules that plug in on the 140 pin connectors on the left side of the board. And you can see the RF modules are a little bit longer than the main board.
The RF modules.
They
Oh
are
yeah, okay. The two bottom boards. I
two bottom boards, right? There's two identical boards. They plug on back here with connectors, and it's gold. They're gold fingers on the data engine. And then the SMA over here is on the clock module. It hangs off. There's three of them, I believe.
Oh, so these are all SMA connectors.
Those are all SMAs, correct?
Okay. Okay.
And then in the upper right corner of your drawing there, of what you're showing, is the power connector, and it hangs off a little bit.
Yeah, right here.
And behind it, yeah, and behind it, the big tall thing is the dual SMA, one over each. And then there's a USB 2 connector next to it, vertical. And then if you go over below the white SMA, there is a USB-C connector, USB-C, USB 3 connector. So it's a micro USB, and that hangs off the main board just a little bit. And then you can see that right above it is the clock module PC board. So that SMA is actually on the clock module, and the two on either side of it are also SMAs.
Okay.
So the one is a through hole right angle, the other two are surface mount, I believe is why they're like that. It's okay, if that helps any. And I don't think anything else hangs off.
Yeah, Scotty, you said dual SMA. I think you meant dual RJ45.
Dual RJ45, yeah, the tall guy.
Okay.
And that's because what I sent you was a composite of 4 boards all plugged together. Because that's what we want to put in the case.
Okay. And the fourth board is going to go right on top of this one, right?
Actually, no, there's 2 RF modules on the bottom. And then the data engine is what they plug onto. And then the fourth board is the clock module. Which
okay, the small one right here. Okay.
And it's a little bitty thing, about 40 millimeters square. And if you see in the upper left of what you're showing here, there is a 40 pin 10th inch center connector header right there. That's a Raspberry Pi header. So there's actually a 5th board if you want to plug a Raspberry Pi board onto this assembly.
Okay, so that's what this is right here.
Right, but that's just a connector for it. I don't show the board because you would use off-the-shelf Raspberry Pi boards, or perhaps Jonathan's EMF receiver.
Okay.
Because that's going to put in here, and then you see the connector right in front of the circular white buzzer.
Yes.
Not the header, but the blue one. That's an M.2 connector, which is the high-speed back connector for the Raspberry Pi for our Leaf board that plugs in.
Okay. And that's this big rectangular block, correct?
Right, and it's a front. It's an M.2 like for an SSD. So the board actually has the Leaf board actually has fingers on it that slide into it, and then it tilts down, and it has male pins on the bottom that plug into the 40 pin header that's in the foreground.
Okay.
And so the Leaf board sits over the top of all those capacitors and the chips there. That's all the power supplies that are in between the M.2 connector and the 40 pin connector. So the Leaf board sits over the top of those. And we most likely ought to make provisions to have a fan, and the white connector at the top of the board, right behind the M.2 connector, the right angle white connector. That's a fan.
Right here.
That's for a fan power.
Okay.
I think the original thought was to put very small, like 20 millimeter or 25 millimeter fans, 2 of them, one in front of each of the RF module connectors, the 140 connectors, and blow from your orientation from right to left across the board. And then the air will blow actually in between the RF modules and the data engine and the clock module. We don't need much cooling, but we do need a little bit, so.
Yeah. And will the heat sinks be included in the new
Sorry, what will be included?
I'm trying to think of the name. Are the heat sinks included in the going to be included in the new step file?
They are not included, no. And the
Okay.
only heatsink we really have is gonna go on top of the FPGA, which is the large IC that's, yeah, that's right there, that's it. And we
Okay.
put a glue-on heatsink there, so if you blew air across it, you get the maximum cooling effect from that.
I guess it doesn't really matter because of the
Right.
IO port.
It will be much lower than the RJ45, so. And what the thought was originally to have a clamshell aluminum case that would have a little mesa sticking out that we would, you know, a raised area that would ride on the FPGA and do conduction cooling. But if you're making it out of
Could be the
plastic,
case.
obviously that's not going to work. But if it was made out of metal, you could do that.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think could I could do with the metal case.
So could
I
you
don't see why
generate
not.
CNC files for a metal case, even though
I
you might?
could.
Because I think I have a source that might be able to help us actually make them.
That would be awesome.
But he's not going to
Because
design it, so we're going to have to give him what we want.
yeah, and that's what I was almost kind of thinking would have worked better would be a CNC case, but I also wasn't sure where you guys wanted to go, if that would be too expensive or how you guys wanted to
Well, I'd
have that.
like to, for a metal case, I'd like to target $99 or less. And for, of course,
Yes.
for a plastic one, a lot less than that. But, and I think that's doable because the guy who makes the metal cases makes similar ones, not quite as big, and he sells them for like $30. So it's, you know, it may be possible to get his attention and have him make these for us if we can give him a design.
Yep.
If you're going to make a little protrusion on the top of the case to touch the heatsink there, be good to have protrusions on the bottom to ride on top of the A to D converters, because they're the hot parts down on the two boards.
Yep.
And those are the three hottest parts in the design. So
we could do that. I would say the biggest limitation for doing something like that, if you did do it, you wouldn't have to worry about having fans, which would I would say lower the cost by a very minimal amount. But if you were to do that, it would, like you said, it would conduct the heat a lot better, and just stick a little thermal paste on there, perfectly fine. But the big issue I would say is with tolerances to touch the FPG, or is it the FPG chip? Is that what
it's FPGA? Yeah, it's a BGA.
Okay.
So
whatever the chip is called, but
FPGA, field programmable gate array.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's what I would say is the biggest issue with that, is the tolerances to touch that, and then also still be able to hold the board down to where there's hopefully not a whole lot of movement.
Yeah, I think that would be my concern too, is that you want to, because since they are on two separate boards, the case would be actually squeezing the boards together, because you'd have one pushing down on the top and two pushing up from the bottom. But the good news is we've got several standoffs in between those two boards, and I think if we use, there's some relatively thick thermal pads that we could use, and I've seen them use them on the Fit PC, whereas they're up to 1/8 of an inch thick, and they're squishy, so it would absorb the tolerance problem in the foam in the thermal compound. And since we're not running like 100 watts here, we need a lot of dissipation, but we need just a little bit.
one thing I would say I could most likely do is basically we would make the case itself, have it set in, and then basically the corners of the board where we would have the case contact the board, just make some basically I would personally use a 3D printed TPU basically buffer. So then the case itself is not physically touching the board. And then you'll have those TPU buffers to slide over the case or over the board
Yeah.
itself. And then when you put the SDR inside, you just have those TPU buffers touching the case. And then I would say the great thing about doing it that way is from there we might be able to stick like some putty in there, put some paste on the chips that we want that have the I guess pillars that would be sticking off of the case. So then we'd be able to basically press it down, and then the putty would then we'd be able to measure that putty and see how thick we need to make those
Okay.
thick or thin we need to make the TPU buffers.
And then the board would just be captive inside the clamshell, so we wouldn't really screw it down. We just kind of put the two pieces together and it would capture it.
I would recommend still having screws to screw the case together to keep it together, but
Oh, I meant the board, screwing the boards to the case. The board would just be captive inside the two pieces of the case. And then you screw
yeah. You're saying screwing the two pieces of the case together, and then the case, like you said, the board would be captive within the case, or
yes. Yeah.
just okay.
If the cutouts are
Yes.
done right, then it would just kind of hold it in place in all directions. And if
Yep.
I mean, if you think that would work, that seems to be the simplest way.
And then I'll be able to figure out what corners we'll be able to put those buffers on, and I'll figure maybe the side of the connectors we might not have to worry about those as much, but I'll definitely I'll probably put in as many points of contact as possible, so then we don't have too much stress on too many of the parts. So
sounds good.
So,
And sorry, Dave, I
Scotty?
didn't hijack the general discussion down.
Well, I
into
wanted
detail.
to finish the roll call and then you can get
Yeah.
into the
Yeah,
general
so sorry,
discussion.
so go ahead, we're.
Okay, next on the list is Michael Howen, AC0G. Go ahead, Michael.
Hello, everybody. A little bit late because I was at my son's last basketball game of the season and in fact of his high school career. So we lost, but they've been losing all season, but that's cool. Back to net.
Thank you. Next on the list is Terry Bullitt. Go ahead, Terry.
Hey all, it's Terry here, W0ASP, Colorado. No traffic for the net, just enjoying sandbagging.
Well, and it says the Joe in Flagstaff says weather's coming your way.
Oh yeah, well, in Colorado we're a little more used to it.
Yep. Okay. Next on the list is Tom N5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, good evening, Dave, and everyone on the groups. Been a busy week. Let's see. First things, I've managed to skinny down the CPU gate utilization and memory utilization a lot. And if I took it down too far and the board wouldn't boot. And then I started adding things back till it would boot, but use the very minimum resources. You know, with that, was able to get on the burst DMA controller and some other things. I've got all that to fit. And the timing works and the board boots. So that's a good sign. I started on the Verilog for the DDR interface for the receiver data. And finally, I think I figured out how to do that. Verilog won't let you put a register between a positive going clock edge and a negative going clock edge. It just throws out, that's a syntax error. And I think I figured that out. You have to use a level sensitive latch in between the flip-flops. And then I think the compiler will let you retime a data from one clock edge to the other if you've got a latch in there. And so I'll be coding that up. I've got the DDR to 64-bit wide converter in Verilog and simulated on simulator. It's not in the FPGA yet. That takes in the data at 122.88 and spits out a 64-bit word at 30.72 mega long longs per second. And that will go from that converter into the DMA controller, which is 64 bits wide. And that DMA controller will then put in a long burst of samples into the DDR3 RAM. Managed to figure out how to disable prefetching on the DMA controller, so I don't need to put a memory buffer in there, and instead the processor can control that directly. So that takes more memory cells out of the implementation. So that's just about ready to get all thrown together here this week and see if I can get samples from the receiver into the DDR3 RAM. It turned out to be a surprisingly larger amount of work than expected, but most of that was every time you diddle with the CPU resources, you've got to go through you've got to regenerate the HDL, regenerate the board support package, replay all the patches to the drivers. And so that loop is about an hour in diameter on my machine. So each time is about an hour. But anyway, I'm comfortable there. I think we've got that. And the Verilog, I simulated that all in iVerilog on a VM, and I've got the design in the FPGA now. Just a matter of wiring everything up. I will have to put a little bit of glue logic between it and the DMA controller to emulate the Avalon ST streaming interface that QSys uses. And so hopefully that's not too much. At any rate, hopefully we'll have some news to report next week. Back to the group.
Oh, sounds like wonderful progress. I'm busily trying to catch up with you. Well, at this point, I think I've called on everybody, and so we're open for general discussion.
So Dave, I have a question for you. Early on, you had asked for some help reworking your clock module. Do you still need that? Because
Nope. David
you-
McGaw took care of me.
Oh, good. Because I was going to say, if you need to do that, we need to do it fast, but sounds like you're in business.
So the hardware, I believe, is up to snuff. I've got about half of the pieces that Tom has specified. I mean, I have the machine and the Quartus all installed, and I'm cleaning up the connections and pieces to do what Tom says I need to do. So
You need to buy a 32 core Ryzen PC.
well, I
No,
didn't
for
put
all
it on. I didn't put it on my fastest machine, but I have the option if I have to.
Well, the CPU is only $5,000, and the only motherboard it
Yeah.
runs on is another $5,000. So
Yes.
no
What you-
problem. And you
what
haven't
you
even
can't-
got memory yet.
What, you can't put that in the FPGA?
No, it's for the
No.
compiler. To make the FPGA compile its own code.
Right.
Yes.
I hate to think how long that would take.
Yes.
You're paying a lot of money for that CPU, so it should be able to compile its own code. Although I have no idea what I just said there.
So on the board, I have a couple of questions and then another different comment. Were those fiber optic connectors hanging off on the clock module on each side of the SMA or? what-
No,
what are those?
they're SMAs.
SMAs.
Yeah,
They're
They're SMAs.
square?
They're just lower profile surface mount SMAs, I believe, rather than the through hole ones. Or
Okay.
sorry, they're end launch SMAs that slide onto the board. But we couldn't do that over the USB connector because there's not enough clearance below it, so we had to use a through hole connector and chop the pins off. It's really like 9 pounds in an 8-pound bag, so
Yeah, it looked like it, yes. And are there any mounting holes in the board?
Oh,
yeah, there's one screw hole in the clock module. It goes into an M.2 connector, like a M.2 memory stick. And then there's a screw that holds it down to the board.
right, and there's actually 4 holes in the board. Let's see, I got that right too. Yeah, there's 2 holes in for each RF module. And then you can mount the RF modules. I mean, use through screws and use those as mounting holes. And on the bottom, we really don't have any mounting holes. So that's why I'm thinking that if Dylan can come up with a good way to capture the board in the corners, that's going to be the best way to mount things. And when you plug the RF modules on the bottom here, they go up behind the board and come out up here with the SMAs. And the connectors themselves are relatively tall plastic connectors, and we could capture those in the housing because they're 140 pin connectors. So once you plug an RF module on here, this board is held by that RF module. So anyway, so.
And the comment I was going to make was really about Bouvet. I've heard some stories about the problems that those guys had, and that it sounded like it was a really difficult situation. One guy had to jump and swim the last 30 feet or so onto the island because the seas were so rough. And then they finally got on there and put a rope and set a buoy line to pull their Zodiac back and forth, and punctured it and lost equipment trying to get over onto the island. Spent 3 days with almost no shelter. So they might have just lost the stuff they had planned to use for timing or whatever. So it was a pretty tough experience, it sounded like.
Well, that place is one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. I remember, was it the last D expedition that tried to go there? They ended up not being able to land because the winds were so high that they couldn't get the helicopter off of the ship to offload onto the island, and they finally had to give up. And they
That is
left.
true.
So
wow. So Scotty, where are you going to send the where are you planning on sending the tangerine boards next?
You tell me, Dave, Tom, you, who else? Dan?
Does Bill get one?
Oh, Bill, yep.
Angle key.
Okay, whose name is Dave, Tom?
Dave,
A lot of
about
Daves here.
that Dave McGaw.
Dave McGaw.
That's 6.
And there's 3 more.
So go ahead.
Dave L, Tom, Dan, Bill, Nathaniel, and Dave McGaw.
How many are available?
We have 9. I have 8 because I'm not going to send all of my working boards out. If I can get the other 3 working, I think 2 of the 3 I can get working because an LED rotation, I can handle that. And I think I have just a bad resistor, series resistor on the clock line on the other one. So that'll give us 11. And then the last one,
maybe you should send me 2.
Okay.
Are these the type of boards, are they like real sensitive, like you have to be real careful how you handle them and wear a ground strap and all of that?
No, not particularly. I mean, any more than any other piece of, like a Raspberry Pi, you'd handle it like that.
Do you want to save one for show and tell at the ham site in March?
Yeah, I was figuring Nathaniel would probably use one of yours for that.
Yeah, I'll have one. That's kind of why I want two. Because as the PI, I'll have one on hand.
Yeah, and
But I guess
the
the next, I mean, in terms of people who can actually do something with them, Tom is probably the first person who can actually do anything with it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because Tom is doing all of the integration work. And so really until Tom makes progress, nobody else can really do anything, right?
Right. We're following his footsteps.
Yep.
Right. Is one enough for Tom?
Yeah, I have no way to use more than one board.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take to bring up the board in place of the dev kit.
Right.
There'll be some effort involved there. Hopefully it's just getting the pinouts redone, but the QSPI memory and the DDR3 RAM are different. And so there's probably going to be some work trying to get that debugged.
Yeah.
and running.
Yeah.
And
it
Tom,
won't
I can give you a template with you can cut it out of my QSF file and replace the pins that you have, and then you have to go in and replace the header with the pin names, and then patch things together. So it may help a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I've of course modified the heck out of the dev kit pin file to wire up all the peripherals, and those are all going to, I think, be in different places now.
Yeah.
But logically, the code shouldn't change. It's just the mapping of the pins. The only
Right.
thing I don't know about is the DDR3. The dev kit uses one 16-bit wide and one 8-bit wide memory chip. And I don't know, and my recollection was it's different on the data engine than the dev kit.
We use 1 16-bit wide, and that's all.
Okay. All right. So, okay, well, we'll have to see. I haven't dug into the DDR3 module to see how it knows what kind of memory chips and what kind of bus bandwidths are out there.
Have you gotten the DDR3 module to compile in the FPGA?
I'm using the DDR3 instance that came with the dev kit. And so all of that, I'm doing a build of the entire Verilog file, but I don't know if anything is pre-built and locked or not.
Okay.
Scotty,
That was one of the things I had trouble with, was getting that to compile with the DDR3.
Okay.
Scotty, would it make it easier for you if you just shipped most of them to me and then I had my admin assistant secretary ship them out to the other people?
If you want to ship them out on a different timeline, yes, because it's but I don't know if I told everyone here, but we sold our house.
Right.
So as of March 22nd, I'm homeless. So I've got to get everything out of here by the 22nd, and it will be virtually impossible for me to do any hard work or ship anything after that.
If it helps you to ship everything to Scranton, I can redistribute it.
Okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll ship one to Tom and the rest to you.
Yeah, as long as get Tom one as soon as possible. If you want to overnight it to Tom, I will reimburse that overnighting charge. So yeah, get one to Tom ASAP, and then you can send the rest to me, and I will send you. There's a new address, I think, for shipping to Scranton, so I can email you that address, and then I can work on getting that distributed to the other people.
It's probably gonna be $300 to overnight it.
I don't care. I will pay $300 to have this thing overnighted to Tom.
Well, let's do second day for $30, Nathaniel. We don't have to.
That sounds reasonable. But let me just. I'm very excited to get one of these things in Tom's hands.
Now, I will point out that on the university account, when I ship overnight, it's actually quite cheap.
Yeah, so I don't know.
But
So do you
yeah,
have-
so and Nathaniel, you can make out a shipping label and send it to Scotty.
Well,
That is,
can you give me the account number and am I allowed to charge against that?
I don't know any of those details.
That might be problematic, but we
because I know
send people shipping labels.
Well,
Yeah.
Ship them back to us.
UPS and FedEx typically will let you charge to an account. Now, if you
Right.
don't have permission to do it, I don't know really how they stop it. But
Mhm.
I would only do it on a one at a time permission from you to do that. So
I can,
You might just check with your administrator, Nathaniel. It's probably okay.
yeah, I can have Salisa check with you. Maybe, would you mind just getting Tom's out as soon as possible, and then I
and I
can.
can ship that on Tapper's FedEx account. So that's not, and I get
Okay, yeah.
reimbursed for that. So
Great, yeah. Just get Tom set up as soon as possible, and I'll send you an I'll connect you up with Salisa, and I'll see about having her get you a label or something to ship the rest over to me. And then is there a way? How about, do you have all the magnetometer boards too?
no, I have. In fact, I was going to ask you. I think it was Bob. Was supposed to send one to Bob. But I never did. So I got to reinvent that because it's been so long. It's fallen through the cracks. And I have like 4 of them here.
Who
But
has them?
all of the magnetometer boards were shipped to the Tapper store in Alabama.
Okay.
And then we had some rearranging of the Tapper store, and I believe they're on their way to Michigan now to be stocked there because we're moving the Tapper stock up there. But we
Okay.
don't have P&I boards. We have just the 2 boards, the receiver, the remote, and the local board.
Okay.
And they're packaged as a set because they are strapped differently.
Okay.
And actually, they're built differently because the remotes don't have the locals don't have a temperature sensor on them. So we package them as a set. They're all supposedly set to go, but with the addition of a kit of parts. But we don't have that yet. Now, I think, how many are you thinking we need to have available?
I don't know. I was thinking having something like 20 to 30 on hand.
Okay, and you understand that there's going to be no instructions, right? The people who are going to get them are going to have to depend upon the documents that exist already.
Yeah, I was thinking of getting them, but making them available to, developers. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see how much.
Is
I think
this Dave Larson and Dave Whitten? What do you think about this plan?
Well, I think it's fine if you have somebody that's been paying attention. It's not a terribly complicated thing, but it's not for the naive.
Well, my concern was, and you brought this up, Nathaniel, is when they get these boards, where are they going to send the data that they're collecting?
Yeah.
Yes, and it
That's
will be
supposed to-
Bill's site.
Yeah.
So is Bill ready for the sitting at the end of the funnel? Into the tube?
I think that a bigger bottleneck might be the Raspberry Pi that you need to run the device.
Is there someone that could come to the Hamsci workshop and be the magnetometer person? And
So I do have a question though, because I actually I'm not sure if you've heard of him, Linus Tech Tips. He's released a video pretty recently about different knockoffs of the Raspberry Pi, and they have quite a few of them where it's a drop-in replacement of the Raspberry Pi that have the from what I understand, the same pinouts. And I think you could possibly use those instead of just the Raspberry Pi to run
I happened to watch that program yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I think what I got out of it is none of them are quite the same as the Raspberry Pi.
Yes.
And they're different enough that, I mean, they are different. And most of them do not have any sort of Wi-Fi
Yeah.
capability.
And
ahead.
the other thing is some of the pins aren't in the same order.
That's right.
So you would have to rewire the pins on
What do
one
you
side or
mean
the other.
pins?
We only use power ground and the two SCL and SDA, so we only use like 4 pins on the connector.
Yeah,
So
why
if
would-
those pins aren't moved, then you're okay.
I
Those are
think I
some of the
would,
most basic ones. I would be very astonished. I've never seen a board that did not have those.
Is there?
Now, the code that I originally wrote was explicitly hardware agnostic. Went to some trouble to write it that way. I
Yeah,
don't know
Dave-
if it's gotten changed. But
Well, Dave,
it was,
I ran a variant of your code on the what was the board that I was using? It wasn't not a Raspberry Pi, and your code ran perfectly fine on it.
Was it the Odroid or the Vim board? Vim
It was the Odroid. The Odroid.
I've run them on all kinds of them, all kinds of Pis, all kinds of Odroids, all kinds of Vims, and a lot. It was specifically written to use, not to use the Broadcom library that is so problematic when you go to other to knockoffs. And so but that's just one point. You know, it will, the code should run on Pi zeros, Pi 2Ws, twos, you know, I don't know, all kinds of, anything in the Pi family. And, but that's not my code anymore that's really running. I don't know if any changes have ever been made. It's all done, but on another point, if it really came down to it, I can provide a modest number of P&I boards. I can certainly come up with 10.
Would anyone from Tapper want to take on the charge of getting these put together and bringing some to Hamside to either show or sell?
I don't think I can come Hamside. It's just too hard to get there for me.
Okay.
I mean, I would do that if it just wasn't so hard.
Is it because of the airports and everything?
Yeah. It's having to go through O'Hare.
You have to go through O'Hare?
Pretty much, or something equally as evil.
Okay. Yeah.
I got a quick question. Would I possibly, if you guys had like a spare Tangerine, would I possibly be able to get one of those mainly for the TPU buffers to manufacture those and get the tolerances?
That might be possible.
Well,
Let me
I tell
just
you
keep
what,
talking. Dave,
go
Dave,
ahead.
what if Dave Witten, what if you like flew through Newark or Philadelphia and we had we arranged for a shuttle for you or something like that?
Well, I don't think I can get to those places either.
Okay.
You know, I mean, St. Louis is just a shadow of what it once was.
Yeah.
Once Boeing and all moved away. And yeah, there may be flights to places, but I certainly can't take one from, you know, all the flights from Columbia here go to Chicago or to Dallas.
Right. Because I think there might be flights from Chicago to Scranton, so then you'd have one connection.
Yeah, it's always been Chicago itself that worries me the most,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, I probably could do that about as well as anyone could, but
Because I'm pretty sure I have the funds to pay for you if you want to, if you
yeah,
want to make
well,
the trip.
the funds aren't, you know, haven't been the problem. I
Right.
can look at it tomorrow and get you a yes or no answer.
Okay.
Nathaniel, what I
great.
can do is I can order the parts for the kits.
Yes.
And because the boards are there, but I don't believe any parts have been ordered for the kits. But if we're just gonna order for 20, you
Mhm.
know, we can, it's gonna depend on the availability of the P and I boards unless maybe Dave can supply those and we can replace them.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go ahead and do that, Scotty? And then Hyomin, is Hyomin still on? Or did we lose him? Hyomin, he says 73 too. But I think he's going to be there. So even if Dave can't be there, we can get Hyomin and his team, you know, to represent the magnetometers. Because I think it'd be really nice I'd like to show off, have as much hardware on hand at the meeting as possible.
Mhm.
So if we're able to actually have these things to show, I think it'd be really nice.
Keep in mind too, these are partial kits because you gotta solder on a few things to make them work. So it's not like you're gonna be able to put your Raspberry Pi in your back pocket and show up and plug it on and be on the air. It's gonna take a little bit more than that. But it's pretty, like Dave says, it's pretty simple.
Right. But maybe if Dave, I also asked if Jules wanted to come. I haven't heard back from Jules, but
he could drive there.
I know he could drive there, but if I could get if Jules could come and or Dave, I'd love to have both of them come if they could. Then they could, you know, you could have some to the part kits, and also they might be able to have some that are just working on a tabletop there.
They already have those.
What's that, Dave?
I've had the feeling that Jules doesn't want to travel or something like that. I don't have any idea what his, you know, what it's about. But you know, he just and is always kind of dismissive about it. But it'd be, you know, be nice. I'd like to meet him in person.
Yeah, I mean, if you may, I asked him in an email the other night, but he never responded back, you know, at all. So I don't know. But if maybe Dave, if you want to email him and encourage him, if you decide to go, maybe that would help.
Well, I need to discuss this with my travel agent, who's upstairs, the only person in this house who knows how to make airplane reservations. Something I've studiously avoided knowing. And so, but she does it constantly. So
right. And I'll do anything I can to make your trip as easy for you as possible.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's not.
If you
It's
need
not what it's about.
If you need somebody to assemble the boards, I'd be glad to assemble them and ship them to you up there in Scranton.
Well, thank you.
What needs to be assembled? The 40-pin connector needs to be soldered on.
The RJ45s need to be soldered on, and I'm thinking that may be really all that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Most of the P&I boards need the pins soldered on.
We'd also want someone ideally we'd want someone sitting there with a Raspberry Pi and a laptop and be able to actually, you know, show the thing. If someone comes up and asks questions, have that person be able to say, okay, here's the software, here's how it's working.
I'd bring that kind of stuff. Need a Cat 5 cable.
Yeah, well, we've got Cat 5 cables.
So Nathaniel, was Bob the one I was supposed to send the board to?
I did ask for one.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I can do is I can send you one, and then you can take a look at it and assemble it and get familiar with it. If you're going to be at Hamsci, then
yeah, I don't plan to be at Hamsci though. If that impacts.
Okay, but I still owe you one. I haven't sent it out. So
Bob, would you like to come to Hamsci?
No, I probably wouldn't.
Okay.
I'm going to Mud and I'm thinking about going to a Sarah conference also in the middle of that. So too many conferences here.
Yeah. If it makes a difference, I could probably pay for it. So
Yeah, well, that's nice. Thank you, but I probably would pass.
I think I have one more question for the cases on at least the metal one. I'm not the 3D printed one. It's probably going to be done by whoever like who has the 3D printer. They do it themselves. But the metal one, would you for that case, is that going to be like a special order item with that you order with the Tangerine itself? And if so, is that going to be something where you just get rid of the 40 pin and or the I guess just the pin headers in general, and then just solder wires up to the locations that you want them?
Not sure I understand the question because we kind of switched on you. We were talking about the magnetometer, which is a separate set of boards. So the ones that have the 40 pin header that's soldered on and the RJ45s, that's not the Tangerine SDR board. This one that we were talking about. It's the two small boards that have a magnetometer on one and they're connected with a Cat5, and you bury one out in the garden and plug one onto a Raspberry Pi, and then you gather data and send it off to Bill's server. That's what this project is about. So sorry for the confusion.
Never mind.
But what I was thinking is you probably, if you want a mechanical markup, if I can't make this last board work, I can certainly send you that as a mechanical. I mean, it wouldn't work, but then you would see it and you would be able to measure it, a real live one, and test fit your plastic case to it and all that. So that might be a possibility. I'm hoping I can get it to work, but this one doesn't even load. So it's that's not a good sign.
And would it come with the 2 RF modules?
Yeah, I'd have to send you 2 RF modules with it. And those are, I have several of those. I have about 20 of those, as a matter of fact, and the clock module also, because you got to have all the protrusions. But I do have a bad clock module, so I can include that. The RF modules are all good, but if we have enough of them, we can send you those 2. What do you think, Nathaniel?
So I'm sorry, say that one more time. I was emailing Salisa about your
Oh,
about getting those things shipped.
I was going to say, if I can't get this last board to work and I have a bad clock module that doesn't work, I can marry those together, but I'd have to put 2 good RF modules on it and just send Dylan a mechanical sample of the unit so that he can fit the case to it.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Because not much use for the other boards, except for it would tie up 2 good RF modules, but
yeah, you definitely don't want to trust me with the expensive stuff.
Cases too.
Yeah, right. And you want cases for both RF modules, so you want to have 2.
Yeah. I think that seems okay.
And we have 25 RF modules, so if most people who are doing development get only 1 per board, then we have extra ones.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think you can ship Dylan a mechanical sample.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can fix it first, and if I can't, then, like I said, it doesn't load. The JTAG chain is not found, and that's a bad sign. So it's not an easy thing to fix, like a backwards LED.
I can make a couple of comments. It looks like to me this thing is almost like an octopus. It's going to have so many different things connecting to the box potentially, or to the case, and the Tangerine, that is. But the metal case thing, Tapper has done a nice job on some of the metal cases, but cases are a little bit of a challenge typically. If you get the metal case guy, then he's going to want to run a certain number of them when he runs for volume. So you're going to have a storage issue. And then Tapper has also ended up selling cases sometimes when they get all these cases and they don't sell the kits,
Yeah.
or to back them up. So
The fortunate thing is that this case will be small compared to like the Atlas case, which is a giant storage problem. We bought 100 of those, I think, or 150. And that was, a good part of a guy's garage to store 150 of those. So we don't want to do that again if we can avoid it. But these will be small. I'm more concerned about being the guy being able to make enough of them, because he's not really a factory. It's, the guy I'm thinking of is Doug Hoth from American Morse Equipment, and he makes really nice cases, but I think they're done by hand. So he's not really going to be able to just one weekend crank out 100 cases. So
he's going to have a lot of holes and slots to cut in this thing too. And I guess he's going to fold one up or something, and it'll take.
well, it'll be automated, but he still has to set it up to do the cutting. So, and I've sent him emails before and I've gotten no response. So that may be indicative of his desire to not be included in this. So I don't know. I was thinking I might corner him at Hamvention, where he has to answer me. But the answer might be no, so that have to deal with that.
The other thing, if you do the 3D printing, Dylan, I don't know how much experience you have with different material types, but the material can be pretty important that you select. Of course, you can try other materials or even a collection of materials, but sometimes the 3D printed materials can be kind of fragile and break easily compared to injection molded plastic, which would be prohibitively costly for us probably to turn. But you just need to keep that in mind for wall thicknesses and things like that. Of course, you got to manage the wall thickness to work around the connectors too.
But if we can CNC it with islands, we might get away without having any fans, which you can't do with a plastic one. Also, you get shielding that you can't get with plastic, or not easily, or not inexpensively, should I say. So I'm kind of leaning toward the metal ones. And, I see a lot of these relatively inexpensive SDRs, and they have really nice machined cases. So how do they do that? How do they get those cases built so cheaply? I mean, are they done overseas?
China.
Yeah.
China.
Mass production.
When
you
brother-in-law-
produce more of them, they'll add discounts to the bigger the order you have. But that also depends on how many, like you said, of the your SDRs that you're gonna sell.
Yeah, Dave, were you gonna say something?
I just said having a brother-in-law in the business is often handy, and being Chinese.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think with that, I'm going to get out of here, and it's been too long a day for me. The construction workers start before I get up in the morning, so they keep pushing my hours back. So I wish all of you in the east good luck with the snow, and Joe up there in Flagstaff. I hope it doesn't get too bad. I was looking at the weather map. It looks like it's going to be mostly in the north of the west, the northern plains, but I don't know. I'm not looking far enough ahead.
Does Nathaniel need to fund a special storage unit for you to put all this stuff in so that you'll know where it is?
Yeah, actually, I've got 4 storage units that I'm storing stuff in, because we're going to leave the house we're in before we get into the new house. And I actually have every box that I pack is marked and indexed in a Word document, searchable document. And I have a special area in the front for stuff that I think I'm going to need to get at. So
it sounds beautiful. We'll see how it turns out.
See how it turns out. And the trouble is I've marked all the boxes, and I know I know what's in every box. The problem I have is, and Dan can attest to this, I'm not sure I know where every box is, because there's 4 storage sheds, and you got to kind of figure out, well, now when did we pack that one? And I do put a date on it in the file, so I can see the earlier ones will go into the first shed and the later ones will go into the later ones. but they're 15 by 20 by 10 feet high. And we have the stuff stacked 10 feet high. And we're going to be living in an RV on the solar power for about a month before
Wow.
we get AC power in. Hopefully, before it gets so hot, I have to run an air conditioner. And the solar panels that I needed were packed in the third storage shed, and they were the first thing that was put in. And it's
Oh no.
yeah, and it is a 10 by 15, and they're in the back of the 15-foot. We moved 100 boxes out of the way to get to the solar panels.
Oh no.
And it was so they were back in the cranny that I couldn't get into. Nona had to crawl back in there and pry them out and hand them to me one at a time. Took us 2 hours just to get these 5 solar panels out. If I'd known that, I would have just left them in there and gone and bought new ones, because
Wow.
it was awful. So
Yeah.
yeah, putting stuff in front is good. We also have a Connex that we're moving over there within the next couple of weeks that will be on the property. So, but Connex come about May is going to get to be about 120 inside. So I don't really want to put anything sensitive inside that. You know, books and things like that, but you don't really want to put any furniture in there. You don't want to put any electronics in there. Yeah. But we're hoping by May we'll be, at least we'll get a certificate of occupancy for the garage, which is 1,900 square feet, which will hold all the stuff from all 4 storage sheds. Stacked up, of course, but it'll at least be out of the places we're paying rent on, and in the property, so that we can work on parsing it out.
Scotty, your garage is bigger than my house.
Yeah,
My
it's big in
dad-
a lot of people's houses.
My dad has a 20-foot that he cut a hole out in the one of the corners of the Connex, and he put a little mini AC on in the hole, and it keeps the Connex pretty moderately climate control in there, even though it's inefficient without the
1900 square foot garage has a 5-ton air conditioner on it. So we're going to have, I'm going to be able to work on the car in the cool. I've lived in Arizona long enough to know that if it's not air conditioned, you aren't going to be out there from about May till about October. And my contractor air conditioned his garage, and he says, once you do that, you will never go back to a non-air conditioned garage in Arizona again. Of course, you might end up in the poorhouse paying the electric bill, but
Scotty, if you had added 2 more bits to your data record, you'd know which storage shed things were in.
But that assumes that I really know where they're going to go when I put them on the truck to take over.
Right. I'm thinking of the week number in GPS. If they just added another few bits.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, what I should have put.
What if you put like air tags in all of them?
Well, GPS tags, so
there you go.
And how far can I read RFID? Could I read like 15 feet away? Probably not.
Hey, Scotty, I'll be happy to send you some air conditioning. The Weather Bureau just upped our snow forecast to 15 to 29 inches over the next few days.
I know it's going to be FOB Flagstaff, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of jealous. I want more snow over here.
Yeah, I know.
Hey,
but
I've got not nearly enough snow this season.
We had snow on the mountains in Phoenix last week.
Let me see what the temperature is going to be.
Yeah, that's
where are you, Joe?
I'm in Flagstaff, northern Arizona, 7,000 feet.
Oh,
we just had a brand new fireplace installed. I want more snow.
Oh my gosh. Highs are 25, 29, 33.
Now we've pretty much gotten all our snow melted off, and now we're going to get dumped in New Hampshire.
I got most of it off the roof, so I think I'm safe, but our barn collapsed. The roof collapsed on the barn where my horse is.
Oh dear.
Oh, that's not good.
No, and it wasn't near him, but other problems cropped up.
Yeah, they're talking 7 to 14 inches here.
That's what
Wednesday
ours
through
was.
Thursday. Yeah.
Just be careful because when it's real cold and you got all that snow to move around, you can have some health issues. You're not really used to it.
Oh, been
Sure
up
you
here
know
for a
that.
while.
Mhm.
Well, Bob, what do you have in
Yeah.
mind?
No, I'm just saying shoveling snow or,
Oh, yeah,
when
yeah.
you get in a crisis where you got an animals, that you got to take care of. I've got a ranch here too. And had calves born in a snowstorm and tried to deal with those. And it can be a lot of work and in the cold.
Oh,
Having-
yes. Oh, yes. No, I've got the horses boarded out, but my problem is at my age, don't have the strength to do a lot of snow removal all at once.
Right.
Nathaniel,
Yes.
I've got a spare Raspberry Pi 4B 2 gig RAM sitting here in front of me that I don't really have to have. Is there somebody who's desperate for one?
Not sure yet. Hold on to it though for the moment.
Well, let me know. I have an extra 2 gig Model 4B.
Did you want to come to the Hamside workshop, Joe?
No, I'm busy digging out here.
Well, there's less snow over here, so you won't have to dig out nearly as
Yeah.
much.
I'm afraid of getting involved with the same thing that Dave is.
Okay.
I don't fly.
Okay. Yeah,
I just don't like flying.
that
But
makes
if
sense.
you hear of somebody that really desperately needs one, I have one.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it. That sounds good.
I also
Well,
have been working with some i5 Dell computers that are like refurbished, the little small units. And I think those would probably work fine. Just getting the I2C out of it might be a little bit more of a challenge, but I believe that could be done as well. They're about $200.
Hmm.
And they're a lot more powerful than a Pi is.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure they talk I2C.
One of the things you forget is the
Yeah.
operating system tends to be pretty important. And even among the Pis and the clones, they don't all use the same operating system. They don't use the same distributions. So it might be Linux, but one uses Ubuntu, one uses some other flavor of Ubuntu, one uses Raspberry Pi OS. So it's not as simple as it sounds when you're trying
Well, I
to
put the
substitute one
Ubuntu
for the
on the
other.
one that I have myself. I like Ubuntu, so that's what I use. And I loaded the operating system on it myself. Seemed to work okay.
Yeah.
Went through a few hiccups, but not many.
So which version do you use?
I use a pretty close to the latest version. I think it's 2021, maybe.
Because I think Bill is doing his build on 2204,
Is he?
right?
I suspected it would work.
And he's actually doing it on, I forget which desktop he's using. It's not really a standard desktop. And that potentially makes a difference. Maybe, maybe not.
I think I'm gonna say 73 for tonight. Thank you, everybody.
73, Nathaniel.
73 all.
Good
Seemed
luck
like
with
a
all the
productive
snow,
night.
everybody. And Scotty, good luck with your build. And say hi to
Thanks.
Nona.
Okay. Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
I'll see you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Good night, all.
Good night.